Hey, it's John Hope Bryant. So look, there's been a lot of discussions of late about as we reset everything, defund the police, which is just scaring the bejeebers out of all of my friends who are like, I need the police, or what happens if my mother gets mugged? I need to call the police. Slow down. That's not what folks mean. It's just bad sort of marketing of what is actually potentially a good idea. Folks don't actually mean get rid of the police, okay? That's not what rational people mean. They actually mean something that actually makes a little bit of sense. Again, it's just been presented in a very provocative kind of way. For instance, New York today announced $1 billion this week. Announced $1 billion they were reducing from the police force. If you look through the details, you'll find that a lot of that, most of that, is being just moved into Department of Education and moved into social services, which, by the way, is where it needs to be. So let me explain, or as they say when I grew up, explain why this is a rational sort of conversation. So we've got first of all, let me defend the police, first of all. Yes, I'm going to defend the police. Because we got the police doing everything. They're the babysitters, they're the after-school program that no longer exists anymore, so they became it. They're the psychologists, they're the shrinks, they're the counselors for those who are on drugs. They are the domestic abuse separation organizations for folks fighting. We got them doing like 20 jobs, and they're only qualified to do two or three of them. But what happened was, which is just not right, right? And you got somebody who oftentimes has a high school education or some college, making $40,000-$50,000 a year, who we're asking to be a rocket scientist. And you put wings on a pig and hope it'll fly. It's not the pig's fault. And I'm not calling that was a bad analogy. I'm not calling pigs, or that was just the way I was making a point about just asking somebody to do something that is not in their skill set. Where'd this come from? Well, part of it came from President Reagan, who I think was a nice man, born on the same day, but we had different policy perspectives. He honored me back then. I was honored by that, but we didn't agree on policy. And he defunded mental health, famously defunded mental health. So basically, all these mental health facilities, whatever, were shut down, defunded. It unleashed all of these folks onto the streets. Who became homeless. They become people who are like not mentally stable, really who need support, unleashed onto the streets. And they weren't criminal. They were just not well, and they needed help. And we criminalized basically mental instability. People became homeless and start stealing stuff, and people who are unstable start doing stuff. And then we had an increase in drug use, which was, I think, tied to mental instability. And we criminalized that. So if you had some marijuana in your pocket, you went to prison for 30 years because you were sold to be a dealer. Just ridiculous. Those two things alone created a narrative that we had this problem in America, which created a war on drugs, in part. By the way, there are legitimate crises in our neighborhoods and communities. I'm not suggesting there isn't. But the hyperbole of what I just described to you, unleashing this onto our communities, created an environment where you had more criminal activity, more arrests, more violent situations going on. The police then said, hey, we need some more resources. Now, let me explain to you how this works. Everything's a business. Right? I love math because it doesn't have an opinion. So I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm explaining it, or as they say in my neighborhood, explain it. That everything's a business, right? A school district is a business, which is why my dumb rear end could not get financial literacy in school districts in 2009, 2010, because I got actually the President of the United States. I've served Clinton, Bush, and Obama as an advisor, and Bush actually put me on the commission, made me vice chairman with Charles Schwab, and we made financial literacy federal policy in the country. And I was so proud. I wrote a letter with with Charles Schwab on White House letterhead, sent it out to 14,000 school districts. By the power invested in me, the President of the United States, financial literacy is now policy. You must teach it. They ignored it. Crickets. I heard nothing back. Why? Because they viewed it as an unfunded mandate. So I realized then that a school district was a business, right? And they get paid $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 per kid to teach them. Now, A police department is a business. You have a type A personality, male or female, running that department. What do they want? More power, more money, more resources. So of course, there's this war on crime, there's these problems. So now they need helicopters, and they need SWAT teams, and they need bigger buildings, and they need more people. And after a while, they start looking like a little military. But the military is actually not what was needed for this problem, right? And things like community-based policing and some things that had more, softness to it, those things fell away, even though those things actually may have been closer to the solution of what we needed to solve these problems. And they really should have been done in the police department. But again, we burdened the police department with this problem. We made them do 15 different things. They responded with the one thing that they knew well, which was, law and order, and bucked up. And these budgets got huge. And now the average city has a budget of a third to 60% of the average city's budget of an average city is law enforcement, not education, not affordable housing, not economic empowerment, not small business development, not things that create jobs. Law enforcement, catching bad people and putting them away. And now, of course, we have more people in prison in America than any place in the world. Okay, so something's wrong with this model, and that part of this defund the police makes sense. They're saying reallocate some of this budget to other functions that actually might solve the problem. Let's move things on the incentive side of the balance sheet versus on the punitive side of the balance sheet. And in that way, I agree. Where I disagree with people who are simplistic about this with defund the police is hello frequency, is anybody saying we don't need police, you just cray, okay? You just don't have sense. You don't need the police until you need them. But again, your grandmother, your mother being attacked, first thing you do is call the police. Somebody's trying to break into your house, first thing you do is call the police. Crime is on the increase right now, partly tied to COVID, partly tied to the environment, partly tied to the fact that we've been giving folks the wrong message that the police won't mess with you. That's a wrong message to give to a legitimate bad guy, okay? So, look, we need a balanced approach. I just wanted to unpack what was going on here. I think the overall conversation of let's reimagine law enforcement in its proper role. And in some cases, the police need more resources, like body cams for everybody required, more training, more sensitivity training, in some ways, we need to reinvest in them. Financial literacy training. Do you know the police officers in Atlanta, it's maybe nationally, file for bankruptcy at double the national average? Did you know that? $45,000 a year income, $50,000 with a badge, a gun, and they're stressed out trying to live the American dream. And they're coming to work with that stress. And I know because we have a Hope Inside location in law enforcement, and we hear the stories. These are human beings, people. Okay? All right, I'm out. Love and light. Let me know what you think, and let's continue this conversation. Share this video. Peace and light.